Thank you, Chair Blumenthal and Ranking Member Hawley. As a mom, this is a topic that I could not show up to engage in. And I want to appreciate your leadership, Mr. Bejar, for fighting for and leading on behalf of not just my daughter, but America's children. And I know not just your own. I appreciate very much also your comments to my colleague here, Senator Welch, specifically when you're talking about taking an all-children approach. I want to direct my comments to really engage in a space that where maybe the all-children approach hasn't necessarily been taken, and I'd love to get your thoughts on some gaps that we could try to fill. Now, you know and we know that the internet can be a hateful place. We've talked about that today. I understand that among your research in Meta's user experience, you looked into instances of identity-based hostilities on the platform, and you found that over a quarter of Instagram users under the age of 16 said they witnessed hostility against someone based on their race, religion, or identity within the last week. One study published in the Journal of American Academy of Children and Adolescent Psychiatry looked at the issue of online racial discrimination between March and November of 2020. It found that Black youth experienced increases on online racial discrimination that their white counterparts did not. And those instances of discrimination predicted worsened same-day and next-day mental health amongst Black youth. Mr. Bejar, can you talk with us a little bit about what more you think the company should be doing to protect against these kinds of racial and ethnic harassments and hostility online?
Sorry. The fact that a child today, right, Black, any identity, right, gets called out in front of the entire shared audience. Again, the difference between when this happens in a school and when it happens online, right? Go home, ask your child, what would you do? What can you do? And there's no way for that child to say, this is what's happening to me. Somebody's being really mean to me. And I use that language because 10 years ago, Facebook knew this. We knew that in order to help a child dealing with an issue and help them, you have to hear the words that they use. A 13-year-old does not like to report things because they're worried they're going to get in trouble and get other people in trouble. So you tell them, would you like some help? And if you look at the work that I submitted from 10 years ago, you should be able to say, you know, this is like awful for me because of my identity, any form of that. And the company should be able to take that into account to help that child be protected, and then give them resources, and then also make sure that that is not acceptable behavior in the community, because the most tragic thing about that 20% number witnessing these kinds of attacks is that the lack of action on part of the company and the very narrow definition of the content that they would take down means that they're normalizing the behavior. Children watch and children learn from the way other children are behaving.
And just to follow up a little bit, what would it look like to create a good experience? Is it the ability to sort of exercise some agency and the button that you're making reference to?
It's a process. So if it's on direct messages, you have a button. You record that somebody initiated that message. And one of the questions for the platforms is, you know, how many like hateful or harassing messages should somebody be able to send before you tap them on the shoulder and you tell them that is not appropriate behavior, right? So it creates information that you can then act on. If somebody keeps doing it, then you know that they're up to no good, and then you can take further measures. And so without this data, any systems do not have a hope of making a safer environment for youth.
And what do you think has been the barrier for companies? We're talking about the company that you have the most experience with. What do you think is the barrier to change, and what do you think could help to create that, overcome that barrier?
I think they're just not incentivized to make this change. That's why nothing has changed. It's been 2 years, and our kids do not have that button in their direct messaging where the content doesn't matter to say, this makes me uncomfortable. But you can say it about an ad, for example, right? You can go into an ad and say, oh, that's sexually inappropriate, right? Oh, it's not for me. The thing about this is until the information is transparent, and I would strongly encourage that that includes identity-based youth, because if it turns out that the overall number is 10%, but that 90%, 80% of youth that experience these things is because of an identity issue, the data is there to be had if the company makes it a priority and collects it, and that is at the heart of why I'm here today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bejar, again, for your leadership and advocacy on behalf of America's children, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Butler.